Hello my friends and welcome back. It's Friday. Happy Friday to you. We survived this week, but you know what didn't survive this week? Almost everything in Russia. I don't know what happened between Wednesday, my last video, and today, but Ukrainians decided to go full crazy, full nuts and launch everything, including their new drone missile Palyanitsia, which means the loaf of bread in English. I almost thought that I will not show you everything because it's almost too much, but hey, to heck with it. I'm gonna show you everything. I will respect your time, so I'll go over it quickly. All the links are in the description below, so go and do your own research. Everything I show you, the attacks are between Wednesday and now Friday at the time of shooting this video. We begin with Novosibirsk oil refinery in Rostov region attacked by Ukrainian UAVs. Now on this I don't have a photo or a video, but the Russians themselves report that this oil refinery was attacked. And I'm already going to the next one. I'll keep it very quick. On this one, you might think this is Photoshop or AI, but no, this is the real photo of the explosion. Transneft oil refinery in temporarily occupied Bryansk region up in flames. New missiles hit accurately, and here we're talking about the Palyanitsia, or the loaf of bread, the bread loaf, translation into English, drone missiles that Ukraine developed, their own missiles attacking into Russian territory. This happened on the 11th of December. In this report, I'll give you two explosions in two different regions. Drones strike the Kursk region and the Chechen capital Grozny. Overnight, Ukrainian UAVs targeted 2nd Regiment building of the Chechen Interior Ministry in Grozny. Hit previously on December 4th. Chechen leader Kadyrov confirmed drone strikes on Chechen Special Forces barracks. 4 Chechen soldiers were reportedly injured, well actually unalived. There's plenty of footage about it. Now, this is the second time Ukrainians strike this Chechen Special Forces barracks. The first one was December 4th. And Kadyrov reacted to it very emotionally. Let's see how he reacted. Kadyrov's response to a Ukrainian drone strike on a barracks in Chechnya. He says that 84,000 volunteers are now ready to go to the front line if ordered. That's like supposedly the private army of Kadyrov, but no, the real numbers is his private army is 25,000, and secondly, they will not be going to the front. Kadyrov knows that there will be a power struggle in Russia in the future, because that's how it works in Russia. Anytime the regime of the central power weakens, which is happening now, strong men with their private militaries are the one to take power. Kadyrov is holding his men. He will never send them to the front. And by the way, the ones who have been sent to the front in previous times, who have seen footages of it, they're TikTok soldiers. They cannot fight. But Kadyrov promised, I quote, "We will not leave this like this, and for these 4 wounded alone, we will lay down 400 Ukronat soldiers." I would love to see these TikTok soldiers being deployed to the front. It would be food for the Ukrainians. My friends, one of Russia's most efficient weapons is export of fear and also disinformation. This is why I have partnered with Ground News, because they, much like me, are fighting on the front line of the information war. You can check them out by using my link in the description below at ground.news/Artur for 50% off the Vantage plan. Ground News is a world's top news comparison site. This is their homepage, and I have chosen to click on For You, which is, for me, personalized news, Ukraine and Ukraine war, my topics. I have chosen this specific news to illustrate their fantastic tools. Tucker Carlson announces interview with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. We can see on the top right corner that total news sources is 43, so it is a very well covered news. And bias distribution is also illustrated as 65% leaning right. If we look at a factuality, then it's 48% high factuality, which is barely on the margin for me. Anything below 50% high factuality, I would take it with a grain of salt. If you want, you can keep your eye on the ownership tabs. Why is it important? Because owners always have agendas for their news agencies. Also here you can see all of the different wordings of the titles of different news sites publishing on this topic. The title already and the words chosen tell you quite a lot about the agenda behind it. You can see the wording that each news house used to cover this topic. For example, National Post, immediately you get this green sign, individual, Leon Cooperman. Or if you go down to Bloomberg, individual, Michael Bloomberg. Each individual has their own agenda, each wording sends a different message. Here, Ground News lays it all right in front of you for you to check. Scroll between different headlines to cover the same topic to choose which one is most neutral. On the warfare against Russian disinformation, Ground News is a fantastic tool to have. And if you really want to know what you don't know, you can click on the blind spot. It shows you the areas of a certain topic that most news sites don't publish. Check them out using my link in the description below at ground.news/Artur to get 50% off the Vantage plan. Thank you Ground News for sponsoring today's video. My friends, did you think I'm already past the attacks in Russia? No, I'm not even halfway yet. I respect your time, we're gonna go really fast. This is now yesterday, December 12th. Overnight, Ukrainian forces hit a major Russian ammunition dump in the village of Markine, Donetsk Oblast. The village is close to Mariupol. I'll show it to you on a map in a sec. At least one explosion at the dump sent a fireball hundreds of feet in the air. And I hope I can show it to you because it's so far away. Hope YouTube allows me, but a passenger car films it quite far away. I would love to see that explosion up close. I mean, this is magnificent. Magnifico. And here, let's just look where it exactly is. This is Mariupol and Markine is right here. Russians do set up new ammunition depots close to the front, hidden from the Ukrainians, and every time Ukrainians do discover one, a huge fireball follows. Now we go to Taganrog. Another attack, and this was done also 2 days ago at night, 11th of December. Taganrog was attacked by drone missile Palyanitsia. Again, the loaf of bread strikes again. New Ukrainian development, drone missile / something together. By the looks of it, it really resembles the V2 German Third Reich missile. Eyewitnesses claim that 4:18 a.m. at least 10 explosions were heard over Taganrog, and the city's missile warning siren was turned on. However, many people received notifications of the air raid warning on their phones with a significant delay from 40 minutes to 3 hours. So there were explosions, 10 of them, and 40 minutes to 3 hours later was the time when people's phones went off saying, oh, there's a missile attack. This indicates to us that their missile warning system in Russia is not that good. I quote, an industrial plant was damaged, 14 cars in a parking lot burned. According to preliminary information, no one was hurt. Local residents claim that the military plant Taganrog Aviation Scientific and Technical Complex, named the GM Beriev, was attacked. So, the Russians claim that it was the ATACMS that did it, and they published this photo of a booster of ATACMS in Taganrog somewhere. But the thing is, Ukrainians, there are reports that it was the Palyanitsia, their new drone missile. Well, and look at this photo up close. Look at this cone right here. It's photoshopped. This cone is cut in half, and it's not an accident, it's not broken, it's like very bad cover-up Photoshop thing. So if you zoom in, you can tell this is added here on edits later. So yeah, why the Russians Photoshop their photos, their attacks, so it would look like it's an ATACMS? Because if you give your massive losses and explosions, if you give a reason that it's a big, powerful American weapon, that's fine. But if it's actually a Ukrainian-developed and home-produced Palyanitsia missile drone that did this carnage, it's really bad image for Russia. We're almost through, my friends, just a little bit more, hang on in there. Now we go to Altai Krai. You can see the video, I do hope I can show it. A fire broke out at a warehouse of a building materials and flammable substances. So this warehouse and factory builds and warehouses flammable substances that the military can use. The fire area is 2,000 square meters and is spreading. Now, this was not done by the Ukrainians, but we can assume that it's done by a sabotage, which is controlled by KUR, Ukrainian military intelligence. They like to burn factories in Russia. Alright, moving on. Now we jump to Novosibirsk, so the other side of the world, but still Russia, other side of Russia. In Novosibirsk in Russia, what is reported is an army supply warehouse on fire. The blaze has spread to 7,000 square meters, and I hope again I can show it, but it's a massive, beautiful, heartwarming flame. Again, I would assume KUR sabotage. And with that, my friends, I've concluded the part, almost a compilation of attacks and fires in Russia, in Chechnya and in occupied Ukraine, done by the Ukrainians, or the sabotage missions controlled by the Ukrainians. It's a beautiful compilation and I enjoyed putting that together. All the links in the description below. From Crimea, we get photos and images, videos of just civilians photographing movements of Russian military equipment. Russian troops are transferring military equipment from Crimea towards Zaporizhia region. And you can see the photos for yourself. Quite big of convoys are moving on the roads. We can only assume that it is for strengthening the front line or for any kind of bigger offensive operations. Time will tell. Now, my friends, I regret that I have to report this, but for the sake of truth, I think you need to know Ukrainian troops in a certain area of southern Donetsk Oblast on the front, they are surrounded. And let's first of all look at the military map where this is happening. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can get a clear understanding. So this is Donetsk area. I'll zoom into the southern Donetsk area. Kurakhove, this settlement right here, controlled half and half by Ukrainians and Russians. We go a little bit south from it and we get this area right here. As you can see, there is a river and a valley. The valley is quite green. You can just tell by the river and the greenery next to it. Now, this is the last part that Ukrainians are holding on. The rest of the sides of it have already pushed out. Russians have pushed out the Ukrainians. Now, we can only assume that these troops were not allowed to retreat. They tried to hold on because we know the commander of this army group and this unit in the area. And the commander has a history of holding on teeth and nails to the land, not pulling back to save soldiers' lives. These troops here are surrounded. A group of soldiers found themselves in an operational encirclement in the Khainivka area of the Kurakhove direction. There is a few hours to rescue them. And this information already came yesterday, so by today I don't have the newest information, but you might have by the time you're watching this video. The commander of the forces in this area is General Lutsenko, was removed from his post because of it. Now, who is this General Lutsenko? And this information is now brought to us by Ragnar Sais, actually the leader of the 69th Sniffing Brigade. Colonel Alexander Lutsenko, commander of the 9th Army Corps and Operational Tactical Group Donetsk, has been promoted to Brigadier General. That was 2 months ago. He was promoted only 2 months ago, a massive promotion to Brigadier General. Now he has been dismissed because the troops are surrounded. But let's look at his history. It's all written right here. History of holding on the ground. Lutsenko also insisted on holding Vuhledar despite deteriorating flanks, missing the opportunity for organized withdrawal. Deteriorating flanks. Well, this situation, this photo right here of the map is the definition of deteriorated flanks. So I guess his pattern of behavior from the past is just repeating itself. I'm sad to report this, but this is war and this happens. I do hope these troops are rescued or they do a fighting retreat somehow. Now we go back to the topic of sabotage in Russia organized by Ukrainian military intelligence, KUR. A top official who was engaged in modernization of cruise missiles has been eliminated in Moscow. And this is full spy stuff. Mikhail Shatsky, the deputy chief designer of the KB Mars Design Bureau and head of the software department, was unalived in Moscow. He was involved in modernizing Kh-59 missiles to the Kh-69 level, which Russian forces used to strike on Ukraine. Now, these two kind of missiles, Russia never produced a lot of them, but they are modern and they're very deadly and they're very difficult to shoot down. So they are responsible in the last year for a lot of Ukrainian civilian casualties. And these missiles are responsible, and the guy who modernized it and led the design department is this guy, Mikhail Shatsky. And in Moscow, he was found laying in the snow, pushing up sunflowers, sleeping with the fishes, meeting with his maker, whatever you want to say. And people are claiming that this is Budanov's work. Not personally, of course, I would love that. But operatives of Ukrainian HUR in Moscow unalived the dude. Now, I know, my friends, this video is like very jumpy, but I want to like give you, with the shortest amount of time, the most important news of different areas connected to Russo-Ukrainian war. So once again, we jump to a completely different topic, which is the Russian economy, and we'll spend very few moments there. I quote, "The situation in Russia's economy is serious." This is said by the State Duma, and the State Duma is demanding Nabiullina's resignation. Now, Nabiullina is the leader of the Russian Central Bank, and according to the reports in the Russia and in the West, she is a mastermind of central banks, budgets, inflation, monetary control. She is a genius on that area. The reason why Russian ruble still is on float and exists and is not connected to German Reichsmark of the Depression era is because of Nabiullina. She has been able to turn, how do you say, bread into gold or shit into gold? Yeah. She's a smart woman. But now in Russia, every time when something goes bad, you gotta blame somebody. And now they're blaming Nabiullina, the very woman who saved the Russian economy from sanctions for a certain amount of time. This is the state of the Russian ruble. As you can see, it's stabilized for like a few weeks after the massive US sanctions on Gazprom Bank. Then the hiatus to 115 rubles per dollar. It went back to 100 per dollar. But now again, in 6 hours, it lost 5%, going to 108 rubles per dollar. And by the time of making this video, it's 105 per dollar. But anyway, it's very unstable, spiking in 5% per day. It's a massive spike for a currency, not a stable currency. And why the Russian State Duma wants to blame Nabiullina is, Nabiullina is probably going to raise the central bank's interest again on December 20th. That's the deadline, possibly to 25%, which, it makes money so expensive in Russia, and no growth can happen in the businesses and in the country with that percentage. But without it, the inflation would go haywire. Nabiullina knows what she's doing, and I have to say, if they sack her, probably eliminate her, because in such a high position, Russians don't retire. They retire out of a window. If they do eliminate her, it's really good news for Ukraine, really bad news for Russia. The Russian Federation and India signed the largest oil contract in history. Now the Russian company Rosneft will supply almost 500,000 barrels of crude oil to the Indian oil refinery Reliance daily. The deal covers 0.5% of the entire world's oil supply, which is worth about 13 billion per year. Delivery starts in January and lasts 10 years, plus possibility of extension for another 10 years. So this is a massive win for Russia on paper, because they just got a huge partner in exporting oil. But the thing is, China and India, they're supposed to take the places of European markets on gas and oil exports. Well, gas is out of the question because you can export it through pipelines, and LNG is super expensive, and Russia doesn't have the logistical network set up to export massive amounts of LNG. So it remains oil, only oil, because you can export it a little bit easier than gas. The thing with oil is China and India are willing and ready to buy Russian oil at massive discounts, almost at the price when Russia gets it out of the ground. It's a little bit more, a little bit margin is there, but it's like Europe used to buy with 200% profit margins from Russia. India and China are buying like with 15 or 20% profit margins. And if the oil price goes down in the world, that will drop even lower. So I mean, it's good news. They got a new partner, but it's almost like giving away oil for free. They have to give it away because with oil drilling, I don't know much about it, but as much as I know that you have told me in the comments, you cannot just stop it. You have to keep the gears running, because if you don't export oil, if you cannot store it in massive amounts, you have to keep it exporting to drill out new oil, because if you stop the pumps and drilling it out, you gotta do a massive reinvestments to restart it again. So Russia just needs to export it somewhere, even if it's for cheap prices. That concludes Russo-Ukrainian war topic of this video, but now I continue with the Russo-Ukrainian war topic only in Syria, because it's all one war, different areas in my eyes. We continue with Syria. On this video, my friends, you can see, I mean, this happened 3 days after Damascus was taken or liberated, whichever word you want to use, by the rebels. This is a Russian military convoy full speeding to Khmeimim air base, supposedly from Tartus. Tartus is in the south, Khmeimim is in the north. So, Tartus was abandoned and stormed by the rebels. Well, Khmeimim is still under the hands of Russia. So, this is the last holdout they have. And here they're speeding. We see BTRs, we see Tiger vehicles that we don't see in Ukraine anymore because they're destroyed. And the rebels are just watching it. Now, what is happening in Syria? I mean, the civil war ended, at least against Assad's regime and Russia. Well, there could be another civil war. We don't know. I'm just going to let you know the situation right now, and it's extremely tense because two of the biggest and most powerful rebel groups, one of them is Kurdish rebels. The other ones are the Turkish-backed rebel army from the north. I mean, there's so many different names there. Well, these control like half and half of the country right now, with the fault line going in between of them. And they don't stand each other, really. They have massive differences in worldviews and origins and tribes and languages and culture. They're very different. What they're trying to do is unify the country between those two groups without another civil war. The goal is to have one country, one government, but that the Kurds, I mean, they're pushing for it, at least the Kurds, that they would have an autonomous region to govern, because in no country in the Middle East the Kurds have that. Syria might be the first. There have been armed clashes already between these two sides, between these two groups, but they have been controlled. And now, on paper at least, I mean, this is not reality on the streets, but on paper, preliminary negotiations between HTS and SDF, two biggest rebel groups in Syria, have ended. On paper, Syria is unified. Wow. Now, we also have the draft of how the agreement looks like and the demands of both sides. And already looking at here from Estonia, not knowing much about the entire area, I can say that these demands are pretty much impossible, but I'll read them to you. This is demands of both sides of a unified country. I mean, let's unify if we get this. These are the demands. The draft agreement between Al-Yulani, HTS, Syrian government, and the SDF. Summary of the SDF negotiations. SDF demands, so one group. Recognition of autonomous administration and Kurdish rights. Return of Kurdish immigrants and mediation with Turkey. It's Turkey. Cessation of Turkish-backed attacks and Turkish withdrawal. You know, because for Turkey, Kurds are a nuisance. Turkey has declared Kurds a terrorist organization. They are not acknowledging Kurds. They're a minority in Turkey that is being really bullied, including in post-2025 government and resource-sharing reforms. So the Kurds want their own autonomous region. They want the resources of this region to belong to them and share them with the government in Damascus, of course. But they want claimage and ownership of their own land and rights and resources, something that they haven't had in the Middle East almost in any country, because the Kurds go in Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Syria. They're all over these countries and they're in the millions, but no country gives them the rights. Might happen in Syria. Time will tell. Now the other side demands, the HTS demands, recognition of Damascus and expulsion of PKK affiliated elements, transfer of Arab majority areas to Damascus, and partial control over crossing. Arab majority areas, like for here, us in the West, Arab majority areas are not Kurdish majority areas. They're very different. Integration of SDF forces into the Syrian army and flag raising in autonomous areas. Mutual clause, joint effort to disarm warlords and integrate factions into the new Syrian army. So, the joint effort is still to unify the country, take away power from the warlords, because every time a central government falls, strong men appear, like Kadyrovs, they're trying to unify the country. And I salute that effort. Only time will tell if they succeed, because they are very different, the two rebel groups, and everything is in place for another civil war in Syria. Time will tell. We got a fresh drone footage from Russian airbase Khmeimim in Syria, while the other base, Tartus, the naval base, is abandoned, totally abandoned. In Khmeimim, the situation is different. The rebels tried to storm it. Russia sent in special forces. They're encircling, circular defending the Khmeimim airbase because, well, let's look at the footage. It speaks for itself. Because there's massive amount of Russian assets still in Khmeimim. We're talking about transport planes. We're talking about trucks, BTRs, Niger vehicles, troops, and also fighter. Boom! Look at that. Fighter jets next to each other in the hangars. I mean, this is very valuable. If all of that would be taken by the rebels, by the way, Israel didn't bomb it, that would be taken by the rebels. They would have a massive air force suddenly. Almost semi-modern air force. So, the Russians are doing everything they can, and right now they're tooth and nail holding on to this base. Time will tell how this will play out. Now, my friends, will jump to USA, and this news is just... I'm sorry for including it. It's not very directly connected to Russia-Ukrainian war, but it just fascinated me so much. I got the New Jersey light show, the drones, the UFOs or UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. I'll just tell you what I've seen online, what I know, open source. Some of you are from the US, you know better than me, but I want to report on this. Robert Wheeler, an FBI official in charge of investigating the matter, confirmed to the hearing that the agency still had no explanation for the sightings. He told the Congress members that more than 3,000 sightings had been found. This is not just one or two crazy guys filming a UFO and claiming it's like aliens. This is everybody at this area who saw these lights, like 3,000 different videos. It's there. The UAP or UFO was there. US military bosses do not believe the drones or other craft are coming from a foreign entity or adversary. The Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh told reporters. Now, I have a massive amount of footage here. You can go and check it out yourself. I don't know what it is, honestly. This is, if somebody made a high resolution photo of it, this is what it looked like. And what the hell is this? What? I don't know. But it's so big, everybody's talking about it, so I just show it to you here. Let me know in the comments, what do you think it is? One of the more interesting footage was this, because they saw this light shooting out lasers or tracer rounds, whatever it is. I mean, it's really awesome. It looks Star Warsy, so it's really awesome and I love to see it. But I mean, US military is denying it's there, so what the hell is it? And another very interesting piece of footage, one drone. Okay, this video has just been deleted because I found it and now it's gone. So I guess something fishy is going on. But by the time I was researching, it was still here. One drone was shot down. It was these lights again coming down with the flames behind it and crashed on the ground. This was a video which I cannot show you now. But I don't know what it is. The US government and military denies it's theirs and they don't know what it is. They don't suspect foreign countries of doing this. So, by definition, it's a UAP/UFO. It's the aliens. I gotta put on my tinfoil hat. Tell me what it is in the comments. I'll read it all. Now, my friends, will jump to Europe, and countries are angry at Germany. For a good reason. Record high electricity prices in parts of Europe today due to Germany's decision to dismantle all its nuclear power plants. Due to Dunkelflaute, weather with no wind and sunlight, that's what it means, I guess, in Germany. Prices are spiking in 936 euros per megawatt hour, which is massively expensive. Check it out. Poland, 164 euros per megawatt hour. France, 175 per megawatt hour. Poland is coal, France is nuclear. Germany, 936 per megawatt hours, and they are the leaders of the green movement, the renewable energies, the windmills and the solar panels. Let's kill our nuclear power plants and our coal industry and just put out sun panels and wind turbines. Hey, I love the wind turbines and sun panels as the next guy. They should exist and we should invest in them, but we cannot have only reliance on those. We need a baseline production of coal and nuclear, because sun and wind, they're fantastic ideas, but sometimes there is no wind and sometimes there is no sun, and at these days we need to rely on something else, which is coal or nuclear, because they just work. I mean, coal is the most reliable. Of course, it's horrible for the nature, but nuclear sometimes breaks down. But the cleanest in the world, and I do believe it. I mean, feel free to change my mind in the comments, but as much as I've researched nuclear energy, it is the cleanest and safest energy in the world. Put statistics next to it. I mean, much more people die in coal industry than in nuclear industry, all history combined, or even in the last year. Change my mind, German green people. Estonia, my country, right here, is not energy sufficient. Or we have a massive amount of coal. But because of we're in the European Union and we have to respect the green movements, the renewable energy laws, we have to shut down our coal industry. The only industry that allows us to be energy sufficient, and we cannot import energy from Russia. So we are forced to import energy from the EU. And the EU, for example, Germany, who produces, we have to pay these prices then, which in my eyes don't make sense. We're talking about the security, because energy security in a country is a military security, because otherwise Russia can manipulate your country with cheap gas or electricity. You gotta have energy security. And if we're forcing our countries in the EU to shut down one of the only things that gives this energy security, for example, coal production, in my eyes, hey, I'm for renewable sources of energy, but they cannot be the only sources of energy. They have to work in combination with nuclear or coal. That's it. That's how I understand the world. I know I'm going to get some hate comments on this. Let's go to Sweden. Right. Sweden was forced to pay these prices because Germany decided to shut down their energy sufficiency base in Germany was the nuclear power plants, and they decided to shut them down. I'm getting emotional, you can see it, because I take it so personally. Because us in Estonia, for us, our security of the country is very much connected to our energy security. And that is connected to how much energy can Europe produce, electricity-wise. And that is connected to Germany shutting down their nuclear power plants. It affects everybody. It is a massively bad decision, and it takes away a lot from European security in front of Russia. It's Merkel's legacy, and it's horrible. Sweden Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy Ebba Busch stated today that she is furious with Germany for dismantling its nuclear power plants, causing a spike in energy prices in Sweden. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Germans still choose to dismantle the nuclear power plants. I respect that people can have different opinions about nuclear power plants, but we could have kept it. They are important because they are baseload power plants. Now, this is very important. You can have your fancy sun panels and wind turbines. They're beautiful. I love it. Put them up. But you need a stable baseload production of electricity, which comes from coal or nuclear. If you're Norway, you can do a lot of hydropower also. But in Estonia, it's coal. In Germany and France, it's nuclear. If you shut it down, you're shooting yourself not in the foot, but in the head. Germany now doesn't have the cheap energy it used to have in the beginning of 2000s. And it's really bad for German economy. I'm sorry for getting emotional here. I try to keep myself from happening in the video, but this topic I take very seriously because we have done it for ourselves. It's not the Russians here. It's we who have done it. We who have the Germans who have shut down the nuclear power plant, invested tens of billions into then importing gas from Russia, although they could have just continued with the nuclear. I'll stop now and I'll go on to save your emotions also. Let's finish with the good news. Austria today finally announced the termination of its long-term natural gas supply contract with Gazprom Export. They say that Gazprom Export has fundamental breaches in contractual obligations, or I will translate it to simple terms that Gazprom has not exported them the gas they want to, and that is connected to Ukraine just cutting off the supply because the pipeline goes through their country. So Austria is saying that we're now terminating the contract, but actually it's because Ukraine just doesn't allow this to happen anymore. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad finally that this happens in Austria. Austrian people may be not so happy because it makes everything more expensive. But again, you can change it by investing in building out new logistical chains of exports from other countries than Russia. It is possible. It just requires investment and time. My friends, thank you for being with me this week. I'm sorry for these videos getting so long, but I see this information and I think you need to know it. I want to thank the people who allow me to do what I do and who believe in Ukrainian victory and the free democratic world with rules-based order. These are the people who support me and buy me a coffee, who are monthly members. And all of these names I will butcher now will get the patch. Actually, it has been sent out already to you. If you haven't received it yet, you will. All you gotta do is to get this Rehi patch, is to become a monthly member. Any tier, write to me and buy me a coffee and I'll send it out to you within a week. Yaroslava Betukhova Keagi, Rotoslav Stefanov, Roy Turenne, Rochel Gregory. Thank you to 4 of you for becoming monthly members. Write to me and you'll get the Rehi patch. Until my next video, my friends, which will be on Monday, be sure to be back. Until then, Slava Ukraini and bye-bye.